over 30 years, our next guest has been counseling teens through his organization, Heart Light Ministries. And he's also the best-selling author of a dozen parenting books, including the amazing Raising Teens in a Contrary Culture. Please welcome back our friend, the very wise, Mark Gregston. Welcome back, Mark.
It's good to be here. It is so good. It is so good to be here. It really is.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you. You help us so much in so many ways.
Well, good.
And guess what? I'm about to get some more help too. You got a few years before we talk about this next subject. But you say, you're working with teens for 3 decades, like I mentioned, and you say that once our kids reach the age of 12, I've got a daughter that's 13 and a son that's 16, we have to shift, in a sense, our parenting style a little bit. Deb, you've got some time to digest this a little bit, but it's so helpful. So how... And, and in a sense, why do we need to make these shifts?
Well, kids are different. When they turn 12 or 13, they just, they move from concrete thinking to abstract thinking. Their hormones kick in. The whole social world becomes, they start thinking about girls. They start thinking about guys. Something begins to change. And a parent is one of those that's been getting coffee mugs that say, world's greatest mom and world's greatest dad. And they get T-shirts that say, I'm great. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, they're not great anymore. And it's because the needs of their kids have changed, and they've got to change their style to move toward them. Because if you don't change, then you're not going to be preparing them for this next world that they're going to be living in, and that's where their frustration comes in, and you're going to end up with a 25-year-old clown on your couch playing video games the whole time, which is something that you don't want, but it's something that they don't want either.
They don't want it either.
No,
they definitely don't.
You say that, but the truth of the matter is that's becoming the norm these days. I feel like kids get out of college, and then that happens a lot, unfortunately. However, you have some teaching methods and tips and tricks that can help parents, make this transition seamlessly. And you say we have to go from teaching to training. It changes a little bit. How do they do that?
It does. Well, the whole teaching model is what happens from age 1 to 12. And then you've got to start focusing on that age 13 through 19 where you say, I'm going to prepare my child for that next stage of life that they're going to be living in, which means I've got to shift my style of parenting. There's new needs. It worked well during those early years, but now it's not working well. And you go, I'm doing all the right things, but my child is moving away from me. Well, if that's happening, maybe you need to change your style, which means you start doing this. You stop talking all the time and you start listening. You start engaging differently. You stop making all the decisions, let them start making decisions. Quit being responsible for everything that they're doing and start building responsibility into them. Where the byproduct is maturity. And you want maturity because the American Medical Association has increased the age of adolescence to age 27. And you look at it and you go, it's crazy.
Why do they do that?
Well, it's because we are spending too much time doing everything for our kids, and they are just not as mature as they used to be, going into a world that every one of us has said, I'm glad that I don't have to grow up in this culture.
You just
so we're
made a lot of
basically
sense.
not helping them at all.
We're not helping them, and you just made a lot of sense of some of my actions when I was a 27-year-old. So now I don't feel, I don't feel so bad.
No, that doesn't apply to us. It applies to the new ones coming up.
Oh, man, I miss it by a generation.
It's not an excuse.
All right, okay, my bad. No, but it's fascinating to hear, actually.
It is.
And it falls in exactly with what you're saying. So as obviously our kids get a little bit more independence, they stop wanting to take some of our advice. And you say it's great to sort of share wisdom instead of information with them. And I'm going to give you a little bit of example. Maybe you can kind of apply it to this. My 16-year-old Lucas has got a girlfriend who's in college, first-year college across the country, wants to travel alone to go and see her. And we want to handle this situation in such a way that we're not going to be building like more distance and creating more of a barrier between them. We want to be able to talk about them and like you say, with wisdom. So help a guy out.
Well, there's a little bit of, they want wisdom, and they're having a tough time finding it because they look at the world differently. And so they want wisdom. The tendency that we have is to share more information all the time. And this is perfect for moms because if moms become nothing but a source of information and they don't shift to start sharing wisdom, kids don't need moms anymore. You know why? Because they've got this. They've got this, and it gives them all the information they need. And so you've got to move toward wisdom, and that is saying, not only am I going to share with you why you need to do something, but how you do it, and maybe give some examples of what you want to see differently. Information it used to turn over every 13 years. It doubled every 13 years. Now it is doubling every hour and a half. So they get so much information, but they're longing for wisdom. And so to share the concept of something with your son would be, I move from this perfection mindset of teaching to an imperfection of training and saying, son, I want to talk to you about something. I'm concerned about you going out there, but I want you to go because I want you to be more independent. I want you to be more responsible. I want you to make decisions. But here's what I'm concerned about because I messed up. Because also when you move into a training mode, you start sharing more of your imperfections as well. Because you connect with them. And you let him know that I want to be your ally, not your enemy, in making this decision so that we can just figure this out and you can make some good decisions.
That's great.
Great.
That is great.
Done. I'm just going to make some notes, Deb.
I love you. Write that down.
Here we go.
So you also talk a lot about the 4 Ps of parenting, and to prepare our children for the workforce and the workplace is so important. And you say to do that, we have to focus on the 4th P. What is that?
Yeah. Well, we please, we protect, we provide, and we forget about preparing them for the next stage of life. And I'm going to prepare. I'm going to start doing things. Force them to get a job, even if they don't need to have a job, so they can learn about money, so they can learn about submitting to authority of somebody else, so they can learn to serve somebody, so they can learn how to deal with an agitated person, where they can learn the value of $1 and what it means to have a good day's work. And here's the thing as parents, which means we have to quit giving them all their money because there's no need for them to work otherwise. And so what I'm doing is preparing them for the real world that they're going to be living in. And the hope is this, that I can have such an influence that when they start to choose a mate, they will choose well. That when they have their own kids, they will do well with their kids. I can either train my kid, I can either raise my kids to live in a zoo or I can train them to survive in the jungle. And my hope is to prepare them for that next stage of life, and that's in the training.
Mark, how much more time do you have today? Because you got to stick around. I got more questions.
We love this.
No,
man.
we really do, and we say that, but we really truly mean it. You're like every word we hang on. It's so helpful. I mean, if it doesn't show that, Debbie and I are locked in here. Thank you so much. Mark's book, Raising Teens in a Contrary Culture, is available now wherever books are sold. And for more information, go to the amazing heartlightministries.org.